Welcome back, guys. This is Rob with Tech. So today we're gonna deploy the Docker container NginxProxyManager. This is not gonna expose our services externally. So if that's what you're looking for, this is not the video for you. So in this video, what we're doing is we're setting up NginxProxyManager locally. So instead of using our IP address to access our services like Plex, Nextcloud, Pihole, Portainer, Trillium, what you can do is we can have a fully qualified domain name for each service, so you don't have to remember the IP address. So first things first, we need to set up some networks on Open Media Vault. So if you go to Services, Compose Networks, I already have this local dash networks. Now, if you're gonna copy, I want to have the YAML file for the NginxProxyManager on my GitHub. You can find the link in the description. So if you're gonna follow it one-to-one, I would highly recommend you to create the Mac VLAN with the same name. So this is my Mac VLAN local network. Now, in order to create this on your site, what you're gonna do is just do create. You're gonna change the driver to Mac VLAN name. This is where I say you're gonna have to put it the same. So local dash network. And then for parent interface, this is the interface that is where your network's connected. So mine is the NS18 subnet. This is for me. You can just look at your Open Media Vault IP. So like in my case, it's 10.0.0.40. My subnet is actually 10.0.0.0/24. Every time you call a subnet, you have to call it with the 0. That's why if you see here in the example, it says 0/4/16. If you don't know what yours is, if you have a Windows machine, you can go into the control panel, command line, and do ipconfig. In here, it'll give you the subnet mask. So the 255.255.255, this is /24. So that's what I have. And if you have something different, you just go ahead and Google it so you can get that CIDR. So that's where I have that. So here, gateway, this is the IP address for the router. So mine is 10.0.0.1. IP range, we're not gonna set anything here because we don't want DHCP on this network. We're gonna be setting up static IP addresses. So I'm gonna cancel because I already have this network created, but make sure you created a Mac VLAN local network and make sure you put the correct parent network interface. So I'm gonna cancel all of this. Now we need to create a port. We need to create a proxy network. So the reason we create a proxy network is because all the Docker containers, we're gonna put it on that proxy network. So we're able to, so NginxProxyManager can access all the containers. So we're gonna do +sign with name. We're gonna do proxy-network. Now driver, we'll leave it at bridge. Now here you can copy me. I'm just gonna create this random subnet. So 172.1.0.0/24. Now the gateway, I'm gonna make the gateway up 172.1.0.1. For the IP range, I'm gonna do 172.1.0.0/26. Now you're probably wondering why 26. So if we go to IP subnet calculator, what I have done there by putting a 4/26 CIDR, what it does is this. So we're giving it this IP address, right? The 172.1.0.0, and then we specify that this is a CIDR 26. So it tells basically the network is gonna be from 172.1.0.1 to 172.1.0.62. So we get 62 available IP addresses. Now, of course, if you think you're gonna have more containers than that, you can actually, instead of using 26, you can use 24. If you look at this now, you see how now you're gonna have 254 hosts. So it's gonna be from 172.1.0.1 to 172.1.0.254. But for this example, we're just gonna use /26 because I don't think we would exceed the 62 hosts. So I just wanted to explain how or why I had chose a 26. So going back to Open Media Vault, here we just do save. And there you go. So now we have our local network, which is our Mac VLAN network, which is attached to our local network, and then the proxy network. Okay, so now that we have the network set up, now we need to establish or get ourselves a DNS, and we're gonna, or not a DNS, a domain name. So if you want to get a free domain name, you can get it from DuckDNS, and that's where I'm gonna get it for this example. If you're trying to buy an actual domain, I recommend Porkbun. I'm not sponsored by them, but they have the cheapest prices. I mean, I have 2 domains with them. They've been working well. Now, so here we're just gonna go to DuckDNS, and here what happens is, because it's a free domain name, you're gonna have to have it's like a subdomain first .duckdns.org. So in this example, I'm gonna do YouTube demo, and then you're gonna add domain. Okay, so let me sign in. So I'm gonna do it again. So it's a YT demo. I'm gonna add domain. Now, whenever you do this, it's gonna put your public IP address. So I'm just gonna remove that, and I'm gonna put the IP address of our nginx-proxy-manager. So I already know my IP address that I'm gonna use, so that's what I'm doing here. And then just gonna do update IP. So now our domain name is gonna be ytdemo.duckdns.org. Now, after we have this, and we already updated the IP address to 10.0.0.90, this is a private IP address because remember, we're going to use nginx-proxy-manager internally. Because usually if you were going to set up nginx-proxy-manager externally, you would have to leave it at the external IP address. Okay, so now that we have that, another thing that we need to do is we'll copy this domain name. You need to make sure that this domain name actually resolves to this, and you're gonna have issues. So we go back to our command line and we do ns lookup. You're gonna see that I'm running Pihole, so it's gonna depend what is your DNS server. In your case, if you're just using Google or Cloudflare, you're not gonna have this issue. But I noticed that if you're running OPNsense or pfSense, you're gonna have to do a domain override. But like even in Pihole, you're gonna have to do that. So if you do like we specify our domain name, it's supposed to be the address that we see here. You see that it's not gonna resolve it. It's supposed to be this 10.0.0.90. So what you do in this case is, and this is because I have Pihole, so we have to override it. So how are we gonna override it? So it's gonna get a little complicated. But I mean, if yours resolves the IP address without like this, then you can proceed to the next step. But if it doesn't resolve, you're gonna have issues. So I'm gonna minimize this. We're gonna go to our, so here are files, and then if you see that I have Pihole running here, and we have to go to that path, so you can see that it's under change to compose data path Pihole. So the way that I can get this path real easy, I'll just go to storage, shared folders, and then I'll just copy the path for app data here. Now we have to SSH to our Pihole because we have to make the change on the root file system. Okay, so here I'm going to connect to it. Okay, so we're root. Now we can just do cd, and then remember we copy the directory. Now we can do an ls-l, and we can see all the containers that I have there right now. We're just gonna cd into Pihole. Then let me check what's in here. So then you're gonna cd into etc dmasd. So you check what's in here. Okay, so here's, once you see those files 01 and 06, this is where you're gonna create another file. We're just gonna call this vim. We'll call it 10 dash, and then I'll call it ytdemo.conf. Once we open it, what we're gonna do, we're gonna have to do an overwrite. So here we can just do I for insert and address equals /ytdemo.duckdns.org, and then we're gonna do /10.0.0.90. Now, another thing that this is gonna do here is gonna set up a wildcard. So anything that we specify in front of YT demo, let's say like Nextcloud YT demo, it's gonna resolve to this IP address. So this is the advantages of doing it this way. If you don't set up this wildcard here, you're gonna have to set up an entry in Pihole manually. So I can show you that in a little bit. So I'm just gonna escape : WQ for right quit. Now I don't know if we need to restart. Let's go ahead and find out. So we try this again. Okay, yeah, I need to restart the Pihole, so we'll just do a docker restart and then Pihole, if I named it correctly. Perfect. So it's just already restarted the container. So now we try again. It should resolve our 10.0.90. So there you go. So now you can see that ytdemo.duckdns.org is resolved into 10.0.0.90, which this would be our Nginx proxy manager. Now, what I was saying with the wildcard is you can do whatever you want in the front dot your domain, and it's still gonna resolve to 10.0.0.90 because we set up a wildcard. So if you set it up this way, you don't have to create manually those entries. I mean, I can show you more. Like if we remove that server, what happens is we're gonna have to go to the Pihole. If you don't set that wildcard, what you're gonna have to do is local DNS record. Here you're gonna have to do, let's say, demo.yt demo.duckdns.org, and then you're gonna specify the address. You have to set up individually. Let me add it. So if you don't want to mess with the file, you can do this. You can add every single entry like this manually if you're using Pihole, and it will be the same thing for pfSense and opnsense. On those, you don't do the file like this. It's just using the Pihole. That's the way that I run it on mine. But I just wanted to show you why you just have to create a whole bunch of entries. So now that is working, that we've verified that our DNS is actually resolving correctly, what we're gonna do is we're gonna deploy our NginxProxyManager now. So if we go back to NginxProxyManager page, we're gonna get started and then quick setup. Now we have a Docker YAML file here, but you can just copy the one that I have in the description because I have it modified for the network. So going back to Open Media Vault, services, compose, files. So I already created mine. You can just do add, and then do the Nginx proxy manager. But I have it here. So we look at this, it's just the same thing, but it's kind of a little modified. This is the container name. Now here in networks, we added this tab networks, and then we added this network manager. And then remember I was saying that our Nginx proxy manager is going to be on 10.0.0.90. This is where I inputted that IP address. Make sure that this IP address is in your network. So IPv4 address 10.0.0.90, like I said. Now here, proxy network. This is the network that we created where we're gonna add all our Docker containers so we can access them through the Nginx proxy manager. Now here, ports, every time you do a Mac VLAN, you don't need to call the port, so that's why they're all hashtag. Now environment, I didn't put, I think only this one, disable IPv6. If you have IPv6, just go ahead and enable that. Now the change to compose data path. This is if you have Open Media Vault 6 and Open Media Vault 7. This is something, one of the changes that they have now for the Docker Compose. It basically, you don't have to put the / srv def, all that big path, because now you can just do it like this. If you don't know what I mean, is I'll briefly jump to the storage folders in a second. So is this, and then whatever you add here on the front, it will go ahead and create it for you. So you'll go into the app data, it's linked to the app data folder, and then it will create this folder here, then create the data folder, and then it's going to map it to / data on the Docker container. Now in this one is going to do the Nginx folder. Actually, I want to do this. I like my configs to match. So in this case, I'm going to do etc like this. So etc Nginx, and then let's encrypt. That's good. Now every time that you add networks here in the front, you have to declare them at the end. Make sure you don't do any tabbing. You have to only use spaces, because then you'll have a lot of issues because of syntax. So you call networks, and then you have to specify the same name that you use on the top. So you look at this. Nginx Proxy Manager is highlighted, so that one, it tells it here that Nginx Proxy Manager, the name is local network because it's our Mac VLAN network, and then you're going to say external true. Now for proxy network, because if you look at this one, it's also linked, but it doesn't have an IP address because it's going to get it through automatically to DHCP. Name, it's going to be the same name, the way they spelled it when you created it on Open Media Vault. So if you follow this guide, it's going to be proxy network, external true. By putting the external true, it's just telling Docker that, hey, don't create a new network interface. This one already exists. Make sure you attach it or add it to that Docker network. So that's what it is. So that's pretty much it for this. So we'll just save. Now we'll just go up. So I had already downloaded to save time in this video. So in here, what we're going to do is going to do to 10.0.0.90 because that's the IP address that I gave it. And we have to do a :81. Okay, so we can access the container. So I think it's a good opportunity to show you that here, what we can do is click on the NginxProxyManager or any of the containers that you have in issues tools. You can do logs, and you can see here that it says that this file does not exist. So to fix that, I'm just going to do edit, and then it's the one that's saying it doesn't exist is this one right here. So we'll just go ahead and do hashtag. We'll save it, and then we'll bring it down. We'll bring it up. Well, actually, that's not even the container. It's this one over here. So we bring it down. And then we'll bring it up. All right, so now it should work. Okay, there it is. For the email address, the default, we need to look here. It's going to be admin @ example, and then change me as the password. All right, so I'm just going to leave it like this for this example, but just put your regular email in there. Well, I guess I have to change it, so I'm just going to do ytdemo.duckdns.org. You don't have to put your domain. I just, since this is an example, that's the way I'm going to put it in like this. Hopefully I don't forget it right now. All right, password is going to be change me. I'm just going to put a very basic password for this example, but make sure you secure this. All right, so now that we created, this is our nginx-proxy-manager. Now we need to get the SSL working. So the way that you're going to do that is you're just going to take your domain, SSL certificates, and we're going to do add an SSL certificate. You're going to do the domain name, which is this one, and then you make sure you click here, add, or click tab. Then you're going to do *, and then the domain again. So what this is doing is it's gonna, the Let's Encrypt is gonna go out and try to get you a certificate for you ytdemo.duckdns.org, and then this is a wildcard. So anything that you put before this, like I said, nextcloud.ytdemo.duckdns.org is gonna have a valid SSL certificate, and that applies for, because that's what the wildcard is. Now the way that you have to do it to acquire that certificate, you're just going to do I agree, use a DNS challenge. Now in here, we're going to put the provider. Our provider is DuckDNS right here. Now it says that we need our token. So of course, I'm not going to show you the token, but if we go back to our DuckDNS, the token is right here. I'll just copy the token. And I'll just add the token. And then I'm just going to do save. Now this, it should work. It takes a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't work. You have to click it a second time. But usually if it still proceeds to not work, it's because something's wrong with DNS and it can't access the Nginx Proxy Manager. So if you follow the steps on the DNS correctly and it's working, you shouldn't have an issue on this part. Okay, so it didn't work. So we're just going to go ahead and try again. Okay, so it failed again. What we're going to do is we need to do a domain override on my OPNsense router. So I use OPNsense. So for the domain override, what you do is you go to OPNsense and you're going to go to services, DNS master DNS settings. You're gonna scroll all the way down, and here you're gonna add duckdns.org and then specify an IP. So in this case, it's like Google's IP. You can also use quad 9. It's up to you. What do you want to use? After you do the domain override, you apply the changes. Now we go back. This should work now. Right, so we see that now we have the SSL certificate for the wildcard and the ytdemo.duckdns.org. So now what we need to do is we need to fix or attach the other Docker containers into the proxy network. So we go back to Open Media Vault, and I guess we can start with Nextcloud. Well, this is one a little more complicated, but in here, well, actually, this one you don't have to add to the proxy network because it's a MAC VLAN, so we can just specify the IP address. So what you do is in the NginxProxyManager dashboard, you go proxy host, add a proxy, and then here you're going to specify Nextcloud. It's really up to you what you want to put. Nextcloud.ytdemo.duckdns.org. I'm just going to copy this because it's a very long path. Now here it's going to be HTTPS. That's if you followed my guide for the for the Nextcloud. Now the IP address is 49. Port is going to be 443. Now here you're going to do WebSocket support, block common exploits, and then you're going to go to SSL. You're going to select the wildcard, force SSL, and then we'll click save. Now you have your first entry. Now, right off the bat, this is not going to work because you need to make a change on Nextcloud. So if you click on it, it's going to give you that it's untrusted. But luckily, I'm going to show you how to fix this. So you go back to Open Media Vault. Remember, everything that I have set up here is on this path that changed to compose data path. So to do it simple, right? Shared folders, and the app data is the one that we're using here. Remember that if we go to services, compose settings, I have set here that the app data folder is the one that's going to substitute for change to compose data path. So I'm going to open up an SSH, and we can do CD, right click, and then we can do CD again, and then our container, our Nextcloud container is under Nextcloud. I can do an ls-l, and I can see there's a config data and MariaDB. We need to go into the config. So cd config, and then we have to do www Nextcloud. This Nextcloud container is the one for linuxserver.io. Just FYI. In here, we're going to do an ls. You can see the config.php. So we're going to do vim config.php. I guess I'll expand this a little bit. Vim config.php. Now in here, we need to fix. So the first one is correct. So here's the trusted domains. You see trusted domains. This is where you have to add the domain, which is in this case, it's the one that we have that we just created. So we're going to do I to edit, and we're going to specify nextcloud.ytdemo.duckdns.org. Now the other thing that you have to do is you have to allow the proxy, because so there trusted domains, then you have to do on the bottom of this one, you create proxy. So right under here, make sure that you follow this correctly, because this parenthesis is for the array, and then you have a comma. You're gonna go here, and then you're gonna enter. Now you're gonna do the same syntax. So trusted underscore proxies. Then you're gonna do equals arrow pointing right. Then you're gonna do array. And then you're gonna do the parenthesis. Then I'm gonna end the parentheses and put the comma. Now in here, we're gonna have to follow the same syntax. So it's gonna be 0 equals arrow pointing to the right, and then you're gonna do the single quote, and you're gonna do 10.0.0.90. This is gonna be the IP address that you have for your Nginx proxy manager. So after we do that, we can just do escape, right quit. Now we're gonna restart our Nextcloud. So we're gonna do docker restart Nextcloud. Nextcloud would be the name of your container. In my case, mine is called Nextcloud. Now after that, if we do a refresh, we should be able to access it. All right, so now you see that we have our SSL certificate here that we have here created. The YT is actually using the wildcard. As you can see the asterisk, and it's actually secured, right? So it's not showing you that it's not secure, and we can see our domain name. You might notice that after doing this a couple of times, you still have like a non-secure message, and it's not because of the certificate. It's because DuckDNS.org is free, and it constantly gets used for malicious things. So Google flags it. So just FYI. So that's gonna be Nextcloud. Now the other one that we want to do, I want to show you, is TriliumNext. That's for the notes. So if we go back to files, and then we go here to TriliumNext, I just made a video of this. We need to change the network. So we have this default network right here, the TriliumNext. What we can do is we can just modify. You see this default name, Trillium network. So we need to change the Trillium network. We need to specify proxy-network. Now bridge is not going to be bridge. It's actually going to be external. Now we have to specify here external. So what really matters is that the name of the proxy network is correct, and then external, like I said, it just tells it that the network interface is already created. Now how is it working? Remember, the network is flagged as default. So here we declare default, and then we tell it that it's the proxy network. So now we're gonna save, and then we're gonna bring this down, and then we'll bring it back up. There you go. Now we're gonna go back to NginxProxyManager, and we're gonna do, I guess in this one we'll do notes dot ytdemo.duckdns.org. We'll do tab to finish it. This is the IP address, but since we use the proxy network, we have to use the container name. So I don't remember the name. I'm just gonna go ahead and check it out. So container name is TriliumNext. So any time that you're adding a container that you added to the proxy network, it has to be the container name. You can use the IP address, but it's gonna be constantly changing. But if you do the container name, it's always gonna stay. So there, and then I need the port for this, which is, we use port 8282. That's when we created it. Now we're gonna go SSL right here. Now in this particular, with this particular container, we need to add some custom configuration to this. So I'm just gonna copy this into the box, and I'll make sure I put this on GitHub. So here's location for Trillium proxy path. Here you have to specify the IP address of your host, which is 10.40 because my open media was 10.4. That's where it's hosted. And then colon 8282. Now I'll save this. Now we should be able to access our TriliumNext. Let's make sure it's running. Actually, we can use 8080. My bad on that. Is because when so like I have said, every time on the left, this is what gets mapped externally through Open Media Vault. But whenever you're in the same network, it's actually gonna be the port number on the right. So since we have this in proxy network, it's actually using port 8080. So we go back to the NginxProxyManager, we modify this. You'll have to specify, actually it's 8080. We save this. Now it should work. There you go. So now we have our Trillium also with our custom domain name. Now the other example that we're gonna go is Plex. So on Plex, let me see if it's running. Plex is actually easier. Yeah, it's running. So Plex is actually easier. What you have to do first, you just go to Plex. So 10.0.0.40:34,500, I think, or 35,400. I think 32,400. There you go. So I already have it logged in. So basically here, once you log into your Plex, you're going to click the little wrench over here. You're going to click on network here on the left side. Now here you're going to specify your custom, no, not actually, there's more on the bottom here, custom server access URL. So in this one, I'm going to call it plex.ytdemo.duckdns.org. We're going to save the changes. Well, I'll copy this before. We'll save the changes. Now, if you go back to NginxProxyManager, you're going to do add proxy host. I'm going to paste this in here. And then we're going to do 10.0.0.40 because this is the IP address of my Open Media Vault. And then for the port, we're going to use 32,400. Now we'll do the WebSocket support. We'll do the block common exploits. We'll make sure we assign the wildcard certificate that we have for SSL. And if we do it correctly, this should work now. What happens is the way that the Mac VLAN works, it can access its own host. So what we're going to do in this particular case for Plex, we're going to turn it off and we're going to assign the Mac VLAN to it. So we're going to do edit network mode. We're not going to do network mode, we're going to do networks. And then you're going to do enter, and then we can specify Plex. Colon, enter, and like 3 spaces, and then IPv4 underscore address colon 10.0.0.91. That's an available address in my network. Now what we need to do is we need to make sure we declare it. So here at the end, all the way to the right, to the left, you're going to do networks with the S colon and space. Then we're going to call the network. So I called it Plex. I'm going to put name colon Plex. Now we're going to do external. Yeah, actually, I'm doing this wrong. So you have to do networks, and then you're going to specify the name of the network, which is Plex. And then in here, you're going to specify the name, which is going to be local-network, because this is the network for Mac VLAN. Then external colon true. This should be it. So let's save this. Basically, this should put our Plex on this address 10.0.0.91. So let's see what it does. So we'll just do a check. Okay, so no errors. Let's go ahead and run it. So technically we should be able to do 10.0.0.91 colon 32,400. Okay, there it is. So I'm just gonna sign in. Now we're just gonna make sure here on networks. Okay, we still have it. So we go back to NginxProxyManager. We're gonna edit this and we're gonna say that it's actually a 91 now. And we're gonna save. Now if we try again, it should open up. So we'll just sign in again. So now if you look at it, so now we have the certificate and we have our domain name that we specify for Plex. So that was Plex. I'm gonna close some of this stuff that I have up here. Login, Nextcloud, Plex. So we keep it I'm gonna close the calculator as well. So now the next example that I have is Portainer. So Portainer actually runs on HTTPS. So what we're gonna do for that one, we also need to correct the network. So we go to Portainer, just go ahead and bring it down, and we edit. So this one doesn't have network, so we have to create it. So we can do network, and then we'll do Portainer network. It doesn't really matter what you name it. So I'll just Portainer or Portainer N Portainer net. I guess that's what I'm gonna call mine, Portainer net. And then that's all you have to do there. Now you're gonna go all the way to the bottom, and then you're gonna do enter. Here you're gonna do networks, and then make sure we bring the same name that we have over there, which is this one. Just let's copy this and paste it. There, and now what we're gonna do is name. This is gonna be our proxy network, and then external is true. So that should be it. Now you might ask yourself, when do we need a proxy network? When would we need the local network? So local network is whenever you're gonna use an IP address within your network. Also because of the ports, right? So like in this one, we were able to use port 9443 and port 8000. So that's why we were able to use a proxy network. So let me save this. Now let me bring this up. Okay, so no errors. We're gonna go back to NginxProxyManager, and we're gonna do add, and we're gonna do Portainer dot ytdemo dot DuckDNS.org. And then here for the schema, remember it's HTTPS. So this one's gonna be 10. Well, actually, no, you have to put the name of the container. I think it's Portainer on this one. Let me check it out. Yes, I use Portainer for container name. So Portainer and then port 9443. And the same thing, SSL. Make sure we specify this, save. Now we should be able to open up Portainer. There you go. We have another domain name set up in here. Now the last one that I have is Unifi. I don't know. Let me see if it's running. Yes. So what we're gonna do on this one, we also have to modify the network, so it's not created. So remember the name is important. So I'm just gonna copy the name so I can have it ready. So we can actually go and create it real quick. So add proxy host. We'll just do it's gonna be, well, actually we can just do Unifi. We don't need it that big. So Unifi dot ytdemo dot duckdns.org tab. Now in here we'll do Control V port. This is supposed to be let me check, 8443. So we'll do 8443, and actually it's HTTPS WebSocket block. Make sure we do the SSL force. Now this one's not gonna work right off the bat because we need to modify the network. So here under, doesn't really matter really, but here under container name, I'm gonna do networks. I'm gonna call this Unifi net, and we're gonna go all the way down. Well, actually this one has the database. So actually I just need to create two networks because then we're gonna have issues. So we'll do that one there, and then I'll enter and I'll do Unifi backend. So the reason I'm gonna add two is because I don't want to expose the database. So in here under container name, we'll do networks, and then we'll specify this one. So on the Unifi, we're only gonna add the Unifi backend. Now for the actual controller, we're gonna add Unifi Net and Unifi Backend. So we only need the first one, the Unifi Net colon. We go all the way down. We can go to the beginning networks with the S colon space space. We specify the name space space, and then we do name. This is gonna be our proxy network, and then external colon true. Now if we bring the container down, so I think something's wrong. I think the syntax or something. Let's see. He says that something's wrong with the network. Invalid compose project. Okay, so something went wrong. Oh yeah, because what I had to do is I need to specify the other container also. So it's Unifi back end, I think it was. Yeah, back end, and then colon. You have to say space space. Just have to do name, and then we can just do Unifi backend. It doesn't really matter. Unifi backend, and then we're gonna do driver bridge. Okay, that should work now. Let's put it down. So we go up again. Now it should work. So we go to Unifi. It might just be loading. Yeah, it's starting up. And there you go. So also we have our domain name here. Now you might have noticed that we haven't been putting we haven't been creating DNS entries for this because remember we made the wildcard on Pihole. Also, I forgot to do the Pihole. So for the Pihole, there's an interesting configuration for this one. So what we're gonna do for Pihole, because remember this is on 10.0.0.50. So if you go back to Proxy Manager, nginx-proxy-manager, you can just go in here and we'll do Pihole for this one dot ytdemo.duckdns.org. We'll do tab. Now this one is using 50. I don't think it's, yeah, it's not secure, which means it's HTTP. Port, I think it's port 80. WebSocket, block common exploits, the wildcard certificate force SSL. Now if you try like this, it's not gonna work. When you have a Pihole, you have to have a special configuration page on the special config. So if you go back to Pihole, you do edit here, advanced. What we're gonna add in advance is, so I'm just gonna copy this one. This is the one I have on my Pihole, but we need to make sure we correct it. So one of the things is we're gonna have to correct the IP address, so it's not gonna be 19. It's actually gonna be 50 because this one's 50, and then the other one address is over here. All of this is gonna be posted on my GitHub, so I know you can't see it, but in the GitHub you'll be able to get this file. So I'm gonna save. After we do that, now we should be able to access our Pihole. There you go. Now I can sign in, and there you have it. Now we have also our Pihole secure with an SSL encryption with a free domain. So I'm gonna edit this in. I actually forgot for NginxProxyManager, if you're using it for like Proxmox and you start downloading an ISO from the web, you're gonna see that it's very slow. Or if you're using the Nextcloud and you're trying to upload files to it, you can see that it's gonna error out. So actually, there's two parameters that we can change. So if we SSH back into our machine and we find where we have our NginxProxyManager installed, so I'm just gonna get out of this directory app data. So we check in here at ls-l, which see NginxProxyManager, cd into that. You can see data etc. We cd into etc, ls cd nginx. So there's nothing in here, so we need to bring in a file to this path. So to do that, we need to do Docker CP for copy, and then the name of the container is nginx-proxy-manager :/etc/nginx/nginx.config, and then space and then a period. Now if we do an ls, we're going to see that we have an nginx config here. For whatever reason, if you don't have this etc nginx, just go ahead and create it. So mkdir for make directory, and do etc, and then cd into that, and then make directory nginx. So in this config, we're gonna do vim. Also, if vim doesn't work for you, just make sure you do like apt update, apt install vim. You can use vi, because I prefer vim. So nginx.conf. Now we're gonna have the file for the nginx. Now we scroll down, we're gonna find this parameter. So you see here, client max body size. This is like the restriction that I'm saying, like based on files. So if you want to disable this, you can just do 0. So that is exactly what I'm gonna do. Now the other thing that we have to add for this one is gonna be proxy _request _ buffering. Then we're gonna do now we're gonna do escape, and then do : right quit. Now remember that we just took the file, we created the file, we still need to link it. So we go back here and find the Nextcloud right here. Not Nextcloud, I'm sorry. NginxProxyManager, and you edit the NginxProxyManager. We have to allow this line here. So you see, change to compose data, NginxProxyManager, etc nginx, and so this should map it correctly. So we just need to do down. And then up. And it should apply those settings. So we go back and we check the file, it should still be there. Yeah, client max body and proxy request buffering. I mean, if you're not having any issues, we don't have to do these changes, but that's how I just wanted to show you how I optimize mine so I can download from Proxmox through the proxy. Of course, it's like it tunnels the traffic through the proxy, but so you avoid issues, just set this to 0 and buffering, proxy request buffering off. All right, back to the ending. I guess that's all the containers that we did. We did the Nextcloud, we did the nodes, which is the TriliumNext. We did Pihole, we did Plex, Portainer, and Unifi. Guys, let me know if you all want to see a NginxProxyManager exposed to the internet. I could start working on that, but we will have to buy a domain for that. Or because it's actually a lot easier. You can actually create your DNS entries with wildcards on their webpage on the pork bun. So just let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I know it was a long tutorial, but I tried to explain a lot of the things so it can help with a lot of the confusion. But let me know what you want to see next. I'm planning on doing the one for Vault Warden. Now that we have an NginxProxyManager, this is needed to create that password manager. But thank you very much. If you stick to the end of the video, you have any question, leave a comment. Make sure you like the video and subscribe. Thank you.